And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing, and today we're talking about Destroy All Humans. This is a rebuild of the original Destroy All Humans that was released by THQ in June of 2005. This became quite a little mid-2000s B series, spawning 3 games and a weird Wii spin-off game. They were pretty fun. Like I said, B-level titles that did manage to be pretty unique and ended up garnering a bit of a cult status. THQ Nordic now in 2020 has been digging up some crazy stuff, so they've got Destroy All Humans here with refined gameplay, some modernized elements, some stuff added here and there, and some pretty solid graphics. I've been playing a review copy on PC for a few days now, so let's just jump in right off the bat. Yes, they could not change the entire game, and they shouldn't have. It's Destroy All Humans, preserved and lovingly brought to 2020 with some real good care and tweaks that make sense. It still very much feels like a 2005 game, though. If you're okay with accepting that, and some of those little flaws, not even really flaws, but just shortcomings, maybe smaller scope and scale, and a little bit towards how it plays, if you can accept all that, you might find yourself a nice little trip down memory lane here. I don't know how much of a must play this game is for newcomers, but as someone who played the original game when it released and played some of the second game, I very much was instantly transported back and had just a good old-fashioned video game fun time, which is something we still don't seem to get enough of sometimes, if judging by looking at the internet. Also, as someone who just kind of worships Mars attacks and the aesthetic that is always lampooned, this is right up my alley. So in it, you play as Crypto-137. He's a clone in a race of Furon aliens focused on dominating the universe, and through their rampant cloning, their DNA is degrading, but apparently humans have a faint, ancient, pure strand of that Furon DNA that they want. So Crypto is out to probe and murder and take brains and stuff. That kind of all goes into whatever. He kind of gets quickly thrust into this goofy 1959 world filled with intrigue, dumb 1950s suburban civilians, mad scientists, corrupt politicians, a big military-industrial complex, and shadowy, Men in Black-style agencies. It's all basically one big caricature on the United States in 1959, with Cold War tensions and the Red Scare, and some of it can just be really fun and just kind of cool to experience. Not a lot of games really pursue this type of thing, especially from such a cartoonish, over-the-top vibe, and it might make you want to dip your toe into it. Crypto himself is kind of an agent of chaos and a total weirdo, though. His voice acting and his jokes are just so strange. I think it's a combination of unconventional choice of voice for him, coupled with some odd delivery and just some awkwardly written jokes that don't always land, even if some of them are punched up a bit for modern times. Here's the thing, though. I still love it. His whole thing, Crypto, his performance, everything. I can't look away. I don't know what it is. Despite his flaws and just weird portrayal, he's kind of like a Tommy Wiseau from The Room. I enjoy Crypto, and I think that was the same then as it is now. Now, Crypto's leader, Pox, is still voiced brilliantly by the always great Richard Horvitz, sends him to various small open maps to do his bidding. Crypto just wants to probe and murder humans and explode cows, and the dynamic between the two of them is pretty great. And they more or less took out the old static codec conversation screen and replaced it with characters actually engaging with one another and in-game stuff, so it's an improvement. Plus, just a lot of goofy, over-the-top voice acting permeates throughout the entire game, and it's just a corny, enjoyable ride. And I gotta say, with what they've done with some of the scenes and cutscenes here, they've taken just some of the voice and some of the concepts of the old games and gave them more exciting and dynamic camera angles and shifts and just kind of framing that just kind of gives the whole presentation a hell of a big difference that makes playing it all the better, especially because, like I said, the graphics are pretty darn good. The characters look pretty good. The human characters look kind of busted, but it's also because they're just kind of trying to do a caricature of actual people. It's cartoonish, of course. But the environments, they definitely clearly spent the most time in here. The environments and the lighting effects really look pretty darn good. Now, the game itself is mission-based. You select the next mission on the map and drop into one of a few open game areas. There's a desert military base, an industrial dock area, a suburban neighborhood, a beach town, and a couple more. They're not super large, but they do feel a little big when you're walking down the streets, and it's refreshing. It's just you and a mission to accomplish with some side objectives thrown in just to kind of sweeten the deal, and some collectible robots you can find hidden around. It's all perfectly manageable and digestible. Obviously, no, it's not an open world game. It's not even close to an open world game, but it also just gives you a little breathing room to kind of like flex your alien, destruction powers. And that's what you're going to be doing. Gameplay itself is kind of a three-trick pony. There's action and murder, there's I guess social stealth you can call it, and flying saucer stuff. So running around and blasting dudes as Crypto is fun and holds up fairly well. It's mostly easy and forgiving with the aim. I was able to just hip fire through most of the game, but the weapons are fun, and there's so much you can do. Like, first there's the weapons themselves. There's a bunch of different ones you have, from like a grenade launcher mine type of thing to a fireball gun to a zap taser gun that you can chain people with, but there's so much more. There's like mashing the X button to explode an enemy's heads and then take their brain to restore your health. You can mash another button to make random objects morph into more ammo for your weapons, and you can use telekinesis in perfect mid-2000s fashion to grab people with your mind and grab objects and eventually bigger stuff and toss them all around, throw them into explosive barrels, catch grenades that enemies throw you and throw them back at them. There's just kind of always explosions and murder everywhere and people screaming, whether it's like the secret agents shooting at you, the military shooting at you, police shooting at you, tanks showing up. There's just always something going on, and it's always all goofy. You feel like a god, pretty much, with the enemies being really, really dumb. They just stand there and shoot you mindlessly. At least until later in the game, the challenge ramps up a little bit, where they start throwing more and more enemies at you with more abilities. I do appreciate the occasional enemy variety shift and just environmental hazards, but I really wish there were more boss encounters. It pretty much mostly boils down to just one big one at the end. But still, I do think it all is fun, and although the game gives you lots of tools and abilities, it still manages to be pretty simple. But it's pure fun. Like I said, it doesn't really get old until the end, and by that time the game is over. Throughout the 15-ish hours or so, the game doles out new weapons and upgrades at a decent enough pace to keep things fresh and kind of keep you from being bored. Plus, movement is fun as hell. You have a limited use jetpack to get up to higher areas, giving the game a pretty good amount of verticality, and then you also have this temporary ground glide hover thing that kind of feels like a hoverboard, and it's so satisfying to use. Here's a little pro tip: upgrade that skate ability early on, and then you'll have much more fun navigating the environment because you can kind of just basically do it completely unlimited. Yeah. Then there's the stealth or disguise gameplay, which is something that the game does spend a lot of time on, and unfortunately I think it's aged the worst. Crypto has some mind control powers. He can convince civilians to follow him or help fight with him, but most importantly, he can assume a hologram of a random civilian and walk around temporarily and blend in with society. You can't really do too much in disguise, but you can walk around freely without people freaking out and screaming and the police showing up and people shooting at you, and you're able to go into restricted areas and usually do story stuff. Ultimately, though, it doesn't really matter. A lot of times you can just run away, change your disguise, or it's an instant mission failure. But whenever it's an option, it just really feels kind of meaningless. The game does have a lot of these sequences, though, where you're dodging people and swapping disguises, and unlike the shooting and stuff, it gets old fast here, especially considering every time you refill your disguise, you have to hear the same repeated NPC dialogue. I'd rather just be blasting humans with my fireball gun over this. Thankfully, the third tier of this whole thing is a lot of fun. At certain moments in the game, you hop in your flying saucer and you just basically can destroy everything. The controls are weird as hell still. Your aiming is also your height up and down. It's just good old-fashioned fly around and blow stuff up, and occasionally use your shield to deflect anti-air missiles. It can feel a bit more challenging and a bit more complex than you'd expect. And of course, using some different weapons to just burn holes in the ground and pretty convincingly explode buildings is just straight up mindless good fun. Progression-wise, like I said, you're always getting new tools, and the game lets you dump these points that you earned doing side stuff and just mission objectives and stuff into different stuff for both Crypto and his ship. You get to do these in between missions. Ship stuff is like stronger weapons, more shield, where Crypto stuff is more focused on stronger weapons and abilities and movement and stuff. You also have the option to just find a map and then fly around it freely and do whatever you want without any actual missions if you just want to explore and mess around with the goofy world and kind of play with people. It is kind of fun to experiment with telekinesis. I will admit messing around with it quite a bit. Also, in that in-between mission screen, you have access to like concept art, some pretty pretty cool new skins that they added in. And you can replay older missions and try and complete all those side objectives if you want. This game's pretty cut and dry, really. It's pretty simple. Ultimately, you get some fun, simple worlds, some awkward, over-the-top, goofy characters, and some really bad jokes, but also some really good goofy jokes, poking fun at like some of the Cold War hysteria at the time. You get some pretty easy pick up and play gameplay. Like if it's just something that you don't want to think about, you don't want a complicated game, you just want to kind of blow stuff up and see some silly vintage alien type stuff, Destroy All Humans might be for you, especially if you want to relive the original back in the day. I think this is a good preservation, a good update of the old game. It doesn't reinvent the wheel or anything, but hey, you know, it's not full price. It does look and sound pretty darn good, so maybe it's worth thinking about. Either way though, that's a before you buy. You know how this goes down by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about Destroy All Humans. It did come out today. We're a little late on this video, sorry. But I want to know what you're thinking. If you're like an old series faithful, of course, I'd love to hear what you think. But I'd like to hear if you're a new person who never played the original, what do you think of this? Have you watched a YouTube video of it or some streams? What are you thinking? Do you think this game was worth bringing back in 2020? Whatever type of Destroy All Humans fan you are, even if you aren't one, let's talk in the comments. Would love to hear what you're thinking. If you enjoyed this video though, maybe we helped you and informed you, clicking the like button's the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, maybe consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.